cuisine has become a factor or a terminology within cuisine worldwide. And how did this happen? Well, we have something that's called the Nordic Council of Ministers. And these are Council of Ministers from all the Nordic countries, from Denmark, Norway, Sweden, Finland, and Iceland. And in this is also included the Faroe Islands, Greenland, and Åland, which is all, I was going to say small islands, but Greenland is humongous, but it's all part of the Nordic countries as well. Well, in 2004, they collected 12 chefs from all these parts of the Nordic regions to meet and to write a Nordic manifesto stating the Nordic cuisine's place in the world of gastronomy. In 2005, a year later, new Nordic food was put on the political agenda of the Nordic countries. And in 2007, we created something that's called Matlandet Sverige, which means food country Sweden. And this is not an inter-Nordic, but a Swedish political agenda to put gastronomy on the world map and to make it part of our how we're going to communicate Sweden to internationally. And it's part of the Visit Sweden, the media organization to promote Sweden. So what is this manifesto? Well, the manifesto that was written by these 12 chefs was stating, as Nordic chefs, we find that the time has now come for us to create a new Nordic kitchen, which in virtue of its good taste and special character compares favorable with a standard of the greatest kitchens of the world. And this is what the manifesto states. It's in 10 points, and well, I'm going to cook it down a little bit, so I've shortened it a little bit up since I'm reading it to you. Well, the new Nordic manifesto states that we are to express the purity, simplicity, freshness, and ethics that we want to associate with our region. We want to mirror the different seasons in our cuisine. We want it to be founded on produce that grows exceptionally well in our climate. We want to unite good taste with health and well-being. We want to promote the variation of Nordic producers and produce. We want to promote health and well-being in our livestock, sustainable production in our waters, and on our farmed and wild landscapes. We want to find new ways of using traditional Nordic produce. We want to unite the best Nordic cooking techniques and traditions with new influences. We want to combine local self-sustaining with regional exchange of produce of high quality. We want to invite consumers, food crafters, farmers, fishermen, large and small-scale food industry, scientists, what's going on in the background, politicians and authorities to cooperate in this project to promote the Nordics. So this is a cooperation between all, everybody involved in the food industry, really. But to understand how this came about and how this was something that to be put on the political agenda, you have to understand a little bit of history and what's been going on in Sweden and in the Nordic countries. And I'm going to start pretty far back. I mean, the Nordic countries, it's a cold climate. Traditionally, we haven't had any fresh food. We've never eaten any fresh food. We've always conserved, pickled, frozen, salted, cured, gravad, and made sure that it's storable for the long, cold winters, and then we have food throughout the winter and can survive the winter. And you would never eat the fresh produce. You would always conserve it and put it at the far back, and then you would eat the oldest, and to make sure that we always got this stock and can last through the winters. What we've also, to keep warm in the Nordic, you need a lot of carbs, you need a lot of calories. And the traditional food has been very sturdy food, very very intense food that you can get a lot of energy from, that you can stay warm on for very long. And 50 years ago, maybe, you would have an indoor temperature in the winter or throughout the year between 15 and 18 degrees. And just to keep warm inside, you would need, a lot of energy just to do that. And today we have a totally different climate. We have a different luxury. We've got heaters. You can turn it up so you can almost walk around in bikini indoors, even though it's minus 10 degrees outside. And then, of course, the need for food and for nutrition is very different. Now we would like lighter food, easier food, not so many carbs. We would like also fresh food, of course. So, and the other thing, that is one very important thing that made a change. But the other thing is that people in the Nordics are very curious people. We love to try new things. We love to incorporate sushi in our weekly meal. We love to have Taco Friday. We love to have Pizza Wednesday. And in this process of trying new things, we've sort of discarded the old. And the third thing that plays into this is the industrialization. That 100 years ago or even 50 years ago, you would have one person in each household that was more or less bound to the kitchen just to provide food on the table for the family on a daily basis. And with industrialization, you would get, the benefits of canned ravioli or frozen fish fingers, which is great because it's food that keeps, it's food that you can very quickly heat up, it's food that is convenient, and this is food that the Swedes accepted because it means that everybody in the household can fulfill their dreams. They can have a full-time job, they can go to school, they can study. It gives you time to do other things rather than just cooking. And that means that I belong to a generation that's been brought up on very convenient, easy cooking food, but not maybe the freshest ingredients. We've also had a tradition of not really appreciating our indigenous grown produce. We've always thought that the best tomatoes, they come from Holland, and the best potatoes, they come from Germany, and the best meat surely comes from Norway. But we've never really trusted to appreciate our own produce. So I belong to a generation of chefs that's grown up wondering, what is Nordic cuisine? What is Swedish cuisine? What is my food heritage? Because all the Italians, they have these amazing histories where they can tell how they were sitting under the table as a child, and the nonna was doing the pasta and the macaroni, and they have these amazing food stories. But we don't really, or very rarely, have that in a daily life sort of basis. And when you think canned ravioli and fish fingers, that can't be Swedish cuisine, really, or I don't really want it to be, even though it sort of might be the truth today, or was at that time. Then you start looking back. Okay, so what did my mother grow up on? What did my father grow up on? What did my grandparents? What food did they have? Well, they had lots of potatoes. They had really thick sauce with lots of flour and wheat in it. Lots of starch, a lot of meat, not a lot of vegetables. If it was pickled vegetables. It was hearty food that you could stay warm on a long, cold winter. And that is not what I want to eat today. This is food that comes from a different time, that serves a different purpose. And what happened at this time is that we had the manifesto from the 12 chefs, and we had it on the political agenda. And this is something that's been communicated politically, but we also had this whole generation of chefs that were like, what is Nordic cuisine? What is the food that this country can provide? And what we started was to, look where you stand. This is a produce that we've got here. This is a produce that grows exceptionally well in our climate. This is produce that stores and keeps well throughout the winter. this is what we're going to use. We're going to use the wild herbs and the traditional crops. And we're going to apply new techniques to make it up to date and to make it interesting for a contemporary audience. And that is basically how, well, the new Nordic cuisine came up. I'm going to have to shoot off because I've got a dinner tonight. But if anybody has questions or want to talk to me, I will be here the whole day tomorrow. Thank you.